But there are some emerging themes. Extraterrestrial races have been visiting the Earth with varying intent for probably millions of years, and their interbreeding has created the many racial streams. In the distant past, there have been highly advanced technological civilizations based on this extraterrestrial knowledge, a golden age as the ancients called it. Around 450,000 years ago, the Anunnaki arrived, a reptilian race led by the winged, albino white Draco, and they sought to take over the planet. It is probable that they had by this time also settled and occupied Mars. For a long time, the Anunnaki lived openly as reptilians, but for whatever reason, possibly hostility from other extraterrestrial races and humanity, they literally went undercover. They set out to hijack the planet by appearing to be human. This included a crossbreeding program which created human-reptilian hybrid bloodlines through which they could operate from the lower fourth dimension. The fourth-dimensional reptilians wear their human bodies like a genetic overcoat, and when one body dies, the same reptilian moves house to another body and continues the agenda into another generation. You could think of it as wearing and discarding spacesuits. These creatures are the ones the psychics see as reptilians inside human physical bodies. It seems that they need to occupy a very reptilian-dominated genetic stream to do this, and certain bloodlines always end up in the positions of power. Other less pure crossbreed human reptilians are those bodies which are possessed by a reptilian consciousness from the fourth dimension, and these are people who psychics see as essentially human, but overshadowed by a reptilian. The crossbreeding to infuse reptilian genetics into these bloodlines makes this possession far easier than for those with fewer reptilian genes. This is why the Brotherhood maintains such detailed records of the genetic lines. They then know which people can be possessed more easily than others. The reptilians seek, however, to influence everyone by stimulating the behavior patterns of the reptile region of the brain: hierarchical thinking, aggression, conflict, division, lack of compassion, and a need for ritual. By ritual, I don't just mean dressing up in a satanic ceremony. There are many examples of the human obsession with ritual, including doing the same things at the same time, day after day, week after week. The reptilians have used the white race as their main route to global control, but they have crossbred with all races, including the Chinese, Japanese, Arabs, and those known as Jewish. All this allows the reptilians to control apparently unconnected people and organizations. It is the extraterrestrial version of members of the same secret society working in many places of influence, while the rest of the population have no idea that they are connected. You can look at a series of apparently different human beings in different positions of power who come to the same conclusion and agree the same policy. That would appear to be a policy born of democracy and open debate. But what if the same force is controlling all of them? That would then be dictatorship, but unless you knew the true situation, how could you tell? This is what is happening with the reptilians working through human bodies and the secret society network these bloodlines have created or infiltrated. The Book of Enoch says that those born of the Nephilim blood, the reptile-human hybrids, are, because of their ancestral spirit, destined to afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth. Star 8. In other words, those bodies can be possessed by their ancestral spirit, the reptilians of the lower fourth dimension. In the United States, there is an organization called the Sons of Jared, named after the father of Enoch. They pledge an implacable war against the descendants of the Watchers who, as notorious pharaohs, kings, and dictators, have throughout history dominated mankind. In their publication, The Jaredite Advocate, they condemn the Watchers as like super gangsters, a celestial mafia ruling the world. Degree. Many people ask me how today's Brotherhood elite can cause such death, destruction, and suffering, without showing any emotion. At least some of the reptile genetic streams do not appear to feel emotion like humans, and they seem to be far more ruthless, too. I've just described George Bush, Henry Kissinger, David Rockefeller, and so on, and that's not surprising because they are examples of the reptile race at work in the human sphere. What I have outlined in this chapter will astonish even most of those who have followed my work and supported it over the years, and I understand that. But I have learned from enormous, and at times extreme, experience to follow the flow of life and go where it takes me. When I feel the rhythm of life, I dance. When I hear it speak to me, I listen. I go where the music takes me, no matter how incredible it may be or what consequences it may have for my life. For those who haven't tried that yet, you will be amazed at what an adventure life suddenly becomes, what knowledge you can access, grasp, and understand when you go with the flow and cease to wage war with it for fear of being different. For most people, so often the head gets in the way because they fear stepping outside of convention. They fear what other people will think and say about them. But how can you expose the unthinkable unless you think the unthinkable? Are we saying that we know it all? Is there nothing left to know? Of course there is. We know only a fraction of it all. And what has been the force that has brought us even to our current state of knowledge? Those who have dared to think and communicate the unthinkable. Without such people, the human race cannot evolve, it just runs on the spot, living within a perpetual prison of the mind. What was that they said? Humans will fly. Ridiculous. That we can travel beyond the speed of sound. Crazy. That we can create babies in a test tube and clone the human and animal species. Ludicrous. Yet all end. More have been done by those who have thought the unthinkable while the masses mocked. Give it a try before you forget how to do it. Think beyond the bounds of what you are told is reality. To refuse to do so is the ultimate prison cell, the ultimate mental and emotional stagnation, the ultimate control. Indeed, it is the way we have been controlled since this whole scam began. Sources 1. Arthur David Horn, Humanity's Extraterrestrial Origins, ET Influences on Humankind's Biological and Cultural Evolution, and L. Horn, PD Box 1632, Mount Shasta, California. NNU on 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 48. Jason Bishop Ill, Matrix 2, compiled by Valdemar Valerian, Arcturus Book Service, USA 1990, p96. Rev. John Batherstein, The Worship of the Serpent, J.G. and F. Rivington, London, 1833. Bible Myths, p11. Ibid, p15. Ibid, p12. Francis Hitching, The Wad Atlas of Mysteries, Pan Books, London, 1981, p10, section entitled, Death of the Dinosaurs. Ibid. Ibid. John Rhodes, The Reptoid Website, http://www.reptoids.com. Dale Russell, Exponential Evolution, Implications for Intelligent Extraterrestrial Life, Advanced Space Research, 1983. The Wad Atlas of Mysteries, p159. Ibid. Herbert S. Zim and Robert H. Baker, Stars, A Golden Guide, Golden Press, New York, 1985, p58. Graham Hancock, Quest for the Lost Civilization, Channel 4 Television, 1998. Professor Philip Callahan, Ancient Mysteries and Modern Visions, Acres, Kansas City, USA, 1984. See the John Rhodes website, http://a.reptoids.com. John Rhodes, writing on his website. William Bramley, Gods of Eden, Avon Books, New York. Nexus Magazine, April-May 1994, pp 52-54. Explorations in Grand Canyon, Arizona Gazette, April 5, 1909. John Rhodes, The Human Reptilian Connection, privately published and distributed paper in 1993. Ibid. 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 Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, Transformation of America, Reality Marketing Incorporated, Las Vegas, Nevada, USA 1995. Ibid, pp 165-166. Ibid, p 165. Ibid, pp 209-210. Ibid. 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 49. Hunter S. Thompson, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Vintage Books, New York, 1998, first published in 1971. Somatics, The Healing Nature of Sound, video available from Macromedia, P.O. Box 279, Epping, NH03042, USA. Los Angeles Times and Herald Examiner, July 21, 1988. The Arrival, Steelworks Films, 1988. They Live, Alive Films, 1988. Alien Resurrection, 20th Century Fox, 1997. The Final Battle, Warner Bros. Television, 1984, and Warner Bros. Home Video, 1995. Alex Christopher, Pandora's Box Volumes N2 available from Pandora's Box, 2663 Valleydale Road, Suite 126, Birmingham, Alabama 35224. Alex Christopher speaking on Queso Radio, USA on April 26, 1996, transcript by Leading Edge Research Group. Jason Bishop 3, quoted in Leading Edge. Jason Bishop Ill, Matrix 2 compiled by Valdemar Valerian, Arcturus Book Service, USA 1990, p96. Ibid. Matrix 2, Puke Lud. Andrew Collins, From the Ashes of Angels, The Forbidden Legacy of a Fallen Race, Signet Books, London, 1997, p. 35. A Genesis Apocryphon, the translation of part of the Dead Sea Scrolls by Nahum Avagad and Yigael Yadin, published in 1956 by the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Ferdowsi, the Shah name of the Persian poet Firdausi, translated by James Atkinson, Frederick Warne, London, 1886. Christian O'Brien, with Joy O'Brien, The Genius of the Few, the Story of Those Who Founded the Garden of Eden, Turnstone Press, Wellingborough, England, 1985. From the Ashes of Angels, pp. 268-269. Ibid. L. A. Waddell, The Phoenician Origin of Britons, Scots and Anglo-Saxons, The Christian Book Club of America, Hawthorne, California, first published 1924, p. 65. From the Ashes of Angels, p. 191. Ibid. Second Book of Enoch, 1-4-5. Revelation, 12-9. Ibid, 22-3. Geza Fermis, The Dead Sea Scrolls in English, Penguin Books, Harmonsworth, 1990. Chapter 3, The Babylonian Brotherhood. As the flood waters receded after the Phoenix cataclysm, the survivors came down from the mountains and up from within the earth. They settled on the lowlands and plains and began to rebuild. This was when Sumer, Egypt, and the civilization in the Indus Valley suddenly appeared at a very high level of technological advancement, although they had existed before and were now restored after the upheavals. The Sumerian society began at the peak of its development because of this sudden infusion of knowledge, and the white Aryan race, originally from Mars, expanded out from the Caucasus Mountains and the Near East down into Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley, where, as even conventional history agrees, highly advanced societies spontaneously emerged. However, within this white race, and others also, was a genetic stream I will call reptile Aryan or reptile human. Whenever I use the term Aryan, I am referring to the white race. These were the crossbreed bloodlines created from the genetic manipulation of the Anunnaki. The major center for the reptile Aryan bloodlines, in the ancient world after the flood waters receded, was Babylon in the south of the Sumer region alongside the river Euphrates. A closer look at the evidence appears to date the foundation of Babylon far earlier than previously believed, and it was one of the first cities of the post-flood era. It was here that the mystery schools and secret societies were formed, which were to span the globe in the thousands of years that followed. The brotherhood which controls the world today is the modern expression of the Babylonian brotherhood of reptile Aryan priests and royalty which came together there after the flood. It was in Babylon in this post-flood period from around 6,000 years ago that the foundation beliefs, manipulated beliefs of today's world religions, were established to control and rule the people. The founder of Babylon, according to ancient texts and legend, was Nimrod, who reigned with his wife, Queen Semiramis. Nimrod was described as a mighty tyrant and one of the giants. The Arabs believed that after the flood it was Nimrod who built or rebuilt the amazing structure at Baalbek in the Lebanon with its 3 stones weighing 800 tons each. It was said that he ruled the region that is now Lebanon and, according to Genesis, the first centers of Nimrod's kingdom were Babylon, Akkad, and others in the land of Shinar, Sumer. Later he expanded further into Assyria to build cities like Nineveh, where many of the Sumerian tablets were found. Nimrod and Semiramis, or the beings those names symbolized, were from the reptile bloodlines which also became known as Titans, the genetic streams of the reptile-possessed humans and the full-blood reptilians. This race of giants or Titans was said to have been descendants of Noah, the baby described in the Book of Enoch, previously the Book of Noah, as being a watcher-human hybrid with extremely white skin. The father of Nimrod in the text of Genesis was Cush, also known as Bel or Belus, who was the grandson of Noah and son of Ham. Cush became known as the deity, Hermes, which means son of Ham. Ham or Chem means the burnt one and may have been connected to sun worship. A great network of deities emerged from Babylon and its connections with Egypt. Nimrod and Semiramis have remained the key deities of the Brotherhood to this day under many different names and symbols. Nimrod was symbolized as a fish and Queen Semiramis as a fish and a dove. Semiramis is likely to be symbolic of Ninkarsag, the creator of the reptile-human crossbreeds. Nimrod was the fish god Dagon, who was depicted as half man, half fish. It is possible that this was symbolic of him being half human, half-scaled reptile. Queen Semiramis was also symbolized as a fish because the Babylonians believed fish to be an aphrodisiac, and it became the symbol for the goddess of love, hence the use of the fish in Christian symbolism and architecture. In her role as the Holy Spirit, Semiramis was pictured as a dove holding an olive branch, and Semiramis means branch bearer, as in the Amir branch, and Amit bearer degree. Note also the symbolism of this in the story of Noah and the Great Flood, when the dove came back bearing an olive branch. The return of the reptilians after the flood. The name Semiramis was evolved from the earlier Indian deity, Sami Rama Isi or Semiramis degree. A fish and a dove are two symbols still widely used in religious ritual and national ceremony, although most of the people involved have no idea of the true meaning. Sinn Féin, the political wing of the Northern Ireland terrorist group the IRA, has a dove as its symbol, and you find the dove on many of the scepters held by the British monarch, see picture section. Both organizations are modern fronts for the Babylonian Brotherhood, and the dove symbolize Queen Semiramis. The dove to them is not a symbol of peace, but of death and destruction because of the reverse symbolism the Brotherhood employs. If it is positive to the masses, it is negative to the Brotherhood, and this allows their negative symbols to be placed throughout the public arena. No one complains because they have no idea what these symbols, like the dove, really represent. Semiramis was called the Queen of Heaven, also Rhea, the Virgin Mother of the Gods, and sometimes known as the Great Earth Mother, Ninkarsag. She was also worshipped under the name Astarte, the woman who made towers, and this could refer to the Tower of Babel, Babylon, which Nimrod is said to have built. The bloodlines of European royalty came from the reptile Aryan bloodlines of Babylon, and the crown evolved from the horned headgear worn by Nimrod. The horns symbolized the monarch's authority and later became a metal headband with 3 horns symbolizing royal power with divine authority. This is represented by the symbol of the fleur de fours, which you find throughout the regalia of modern royalty, see figure 6 overleaf. As have mentioned already, the Draco royal hierarchy, the winged albino whites, are said to have horns, and I'm sure this is the true origin of the horned headgear of ancient royalty. The classic depiction of the devil also has Draco-like horns. Nimrod was given the title Baal, the Lord, and Semiramis was Baalta, my lady. The Latin term for my lady is Mea Domina, which in its corrupted Italian form became Madonna. Nimrod was represented in a dual role of God the Father and Ninus, the son of Semiramis, and her olive branch was symbolic of this. Offspring produced through a virgin birth. Ninus was also known as Tammuz, who was said to have been crucified with a lamb at his feet and placed in a cave. When a rock figure 6, the fleur de lis, Simbo, WS rolled away from the cave's entrance 3 days later, of the Babylonian trinity of Nimrod, his body had disappeared. Heard that somewhere before. Aoeiha Tammuz, this husband-wife-son theme of Nimrod, Semiramis and Ninus. Tammuz became the Osiris-Isis-Horus mythology of the Egyptians, with its equivalent in India, Asia, China and elsewhere. Much later it would be Joseph, Mary and Jesus. When the Babylonians held their spring rites to mark the death and resurrection after 3 days of Tammuz Ninus, they offered buns inscribed with a solar cross. Yes, even the hot cross buns of British Easter tradition come from Babylon. Easter comes from another face of Queen Semiramis Ishtar, and it is from this, and possibly another brotherhood deity, Ashtaroth, that we get the name of Ashtras and Ashtra Command, a completely manipulated New Age belief in an extraterrestrial hero who has come to save us. The Babylonian myths and symbolism provided the foundations for all the major religions, especially Christianity. The Roman Church was the creation of the Babylonian Brotherhood, and the Pope still wears a mitre shaped like a fish head to symbolize Nimrod. This is also the significance of his fisherman's ring. The chair of St. Peter in the Vatican was claimed to be a holy relic, but in 1968 it was exposed by a scientific commission as being no older than the 9th century. More significantly, according to the Catholic Encyclopedia, is that it is decorated by 12 plates portraying the 12 labors of Hercules. This same work claims that Hercules was another name for Nimrod before becoming a deity of the Greeks. In 1825, Pope Leo XII authorized the production of a Jubilee medal, and it depicted a woman in a pose that was blatant symbolism of Queen Semiramis. She had a crucifix in her left hand, a cup in her right, and on her head was a 7-rayed crown like the one on the Statue of Liberty, another depiction of Semiramis which was given to New York by French Freemasons. A contact who has relatives working in high positions in the Vatican told me how, during the reign of Pope John Paul II, he was given a guided tour of the place which blew his mind. He was shown the Pope's solid gold bath, which is decorated with all the astrological symbols, and he saw inside the vacuum-sealed vaults which contain thousands of ancient esoteric books which have been stolen and hoarded over hundreds of years of religious dictatorship and so taken out of public circulation. The Roman Church and the Babylonian Brotherhood are one and the same. Nimrod was also Enos, the god with 2 faces, who was later known to the Romans as Janus. One of the Anunnaki brothers, Enki the serpent god, was also Known as Ea. The Freemasonic eagle with two heads looking left and right, east and west, is symbolic of Nimrod in the role of Enos, and I would suggest that the eagle is symbolic of the winged Draco. Enos, it was said, held the keys to the doors of heaven, and he was the sole intermediary between God and humanity, therefore any belief not supported by him was false and should be condemned. This was a wonderful tool for the Babylonian priesthood to impose their will on the populace, and exactly the same scam has been played by their successors, the Christian priests, the rabbis, and the priesthoods of Islam, Hinduism, and all the rest. The Roman Catholic title of cardinal comes from the word cardo, meaning hinge, and relates to Nimrod's role as guardian of the door to heaven. The Babylonian priests even established a governing body they called the Grand Council of Pontiffs, a name later transferred to the Church of Rome. The Babylonian high priest, who instructed the inner circle initiates, was known as Peter, meaning the great interpreter. The feast day of the Christian Saint Peter was traditionally celebrated on the day the sun entered the astrological house of Aquarius, the very day that Enos and Janus were honored. The Babylonian religion, like all the look-alikes that were to follow, consisted of two levels. The masses were manipulated into believing superstitions and into taking symbolic stories literally, while the chosen initiates were given the real knowledge on penalty of death if they ever revealed it. In this way, the truth about life, human potential, history, and the reptilian agenda were lost to the population and kept only for the few. Human sacrifice was fundamental to the religion of Babylon, and wherever the Babylonian Brotherhood and their reptilian bloodlines have traveled, human sacrifice has always gone with them because the reptilians demand these rituals. The malevolent ones seem to be addicted to blood, and this has been passed on to their crossbreeds, as the evidence I shall present will show. The Babylonian priests were required to eat some of their sacrificial offerings, and so the word for priest, cannibal, became the term for eating human flesh. Cannibal 3 Moloch, the name of that flying lizard I mentioned earlier, was another name for Nimrod. Tammuz. Tam means to perfect and Muz means to burn. You can see the symbolism of Tammuz Moloch, therefore, in the rituals of burning children alive in honor of this deity which, staggeringly, still go on today. The Beltane ritual, later performed in Britain by the Druids on May Day, involved the burning of children in the belly of a huge wicker effigy of a man. This was inherited from the Babylonians when the Brotherhood expanded across Europe. Indeed, it may well be that the reptilians had once based themselves in what is now the United Kingdom and Ireland before they moved their main focus to the Near East and Africa. The Feast of Tammuz was on June 23 and celebrated his ascension from the underworld. When he was resurrected, Tammuz was known as Ons, the fish god, and Ons is a version of the name John 4. For this reason, John has been used as a symbol for Tammuz Nimrod in symbolic characters like John the Baptist. June 23, the Feast of Tammuz, became the Christian day called St. John's Eve. The Nimrod-Semiramis combination has been depicted under countless names in the civilizations and cultures which have followed. These deities throughout the world may seem to be an unfathomable tidal wave of names, but they are overwhelmingly different names for the same two figures. Another deity widely used in Satanism for the sacrifice of children today is Kronos, the king of the Cyclops in Greek legend. He was known as the Tower Builder and is almost certainly another version of Nimrod, the builder of the biblical Tower of Babel. The reason the reptile bloodlines are involved in such unspeakable ritual and practice today is quite simply because they always have been. When you follow these bloodlines across history, you find they use the same rituals and sacrifice to the same deities, right to the present day. Another passage in the Book of Enoch tells of the Watchers breeding with human women and the behavior of the offspring they produced, and they became pregnant, and they bore great giants, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts, and reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink blood. The earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Registered sign that passage describes the bloodlines I am highlighting, and they came together in the Babylonian Brotherhood, which has since expanded across the planet. While we look out of our eyes and feel part of this physical world, the reptiles look into this third dimension, much like someone looking through a window. In this case, the eyes of the physical body. We are consciously in the third dimension, they are consciously in the fourth, looking into the third. When you know what you are looking for, it is the eyes that give them away. They are dark, piercing, and cold. The reptile full-bloods are not attached to their bodies like humans. They are knowingly using them as spacesuits to operate in this world, and when one wears out they simply occupy another. It is from this process of possession by the reptilians and other low-vibrational entities that we have the ancient tales, indeed modern ones too, of demons, devils and evil spirits taking over a human mind and body. It is the reptilians and other consciousness of the lower fourth dimension, the cesspit vibration as I call it, which are summoned during satanic, black magic rituals, and it is during these rituals that many unsuspecting puppets are plugged into the reptilian consciousness and taken over. So it was in Babylon and so it is today. As I revealed in JME I Am Free, and will elaborate upon in this book, the Brotherhood hierarchy today are seriously into satanic ritual, child sacrifice, blood drinking and other abominations that would take your breath away. Yes, I am talking about some of the biggest royal, political, business, banking and media names on the planet. People like Henry Kissinger, George Bush, the British royal family and many other presidents, prime ministers and members of royalty. Fantastic. Of course it is, but since when did the truth not sound fantastic in a world of such denial and illusion? 3 of the principal elements of the Babylonian religion were fire, serpents and the sun. I should explain their focus on the sun because it is a vital part of the story. Most of the global population worshipped the sun for its obvious gifts of heat and light and the effect this had on their crops and well-being. However, within the hierarchy of the Babylon Brotherhood and other elite groups which had the advanced knowledge, they focused on the sun for other reasons too. They understood the true nature of the sun as a multidimensional consciousness which extends across the solar system on unseen frequency levels. Even in this physical dimension, the sun's emissions of magnetic energy are constantly affecting us second by second. The sun has a diameter of some 864,000 miles and contains 99% of the matter in the solar system. 7 It is an immense ball of energy which works very much like an atomic bomb, and the internal temperature can reach as much as 14 million degrees centigrade. It rotates faster at the equator than at the poles. And therefore the activity and stimulation of the sun's magnetic field is simply colossal. The writer and researcher Maurice Cotterell has made a long and detailed study of sunspot and solar flare activity when the sun is projecting immensely powerful magnetic energy. This has been photographed as gigantic loops of fire, some 100,000 miles high. This energy travels to the Earth on the solar wind and it can affect computer systems and cause power blackouts. But for the Van Allen belts, the zones of radiation which surround the planet and connect with the Earth's magnetic field, the sun's energy would fry us. Maurice Cotterell studied the sunspot cycles and established short, long and great cycles of solar activity, as he explains in his book with Adrian G. Gilbert called The Mayan Prophecies. When Cotterell's research was already advanced, he came across the amazing mathematical system of numbers and symbols left by the ancient Maya people in Central America. The Maya claimed to have originated with the gods and recognized a lost island as their former home. Their astonishingly accurate mathematical and astronomical systems and their measurement of time were inherited from much older cultures and ultimately from the extraterrestrials. We have already seen that Mexican President Miguel de la Madrid claimed that the Mayans were interbred with the reptilians, the iguana race as he put it. Maurice Cotterell was fascinated to realize that the Mayan cycles of human evolution corresponded remarkably with his sunspot cycles of magnetic emissions. Even over thousands of years, they were incredibly close. This is perfectly explainable. Everything is energy. Life is the interaction of magnetic vibrational fields. Change the magnetism and you change the nature of the energy field. Change the energy field and you change the nature of mental, emotional, spiritual and physical life, all of which are energy in different forms. The other planets do this as they circle the sun and affect the magnetic field of the Earth. We call this astrology. Cotterell believes that we are affected by these fields most powerfully at the time we are conceived rather than the time we are born, a point which has much validity. I feel that both powerfully affect us. His research established that sunspot activity corresponds with the human fertility cycles and with the emergence and demise of great civilizations and empires. Scientists have also discovered that humans have an internal clock which is in sync with the sun. In short, the sun's effect on human life is fundamental and far beyond its obvious contribution of warmth and light. The extraterrestrials knew this in these ancient times, and the sun was viewed with awe. It is the physical and spiritual heart of the solar system, and it came to symbolize the Creator, particularly the male aspects of the creative force. He who is the light of the world. This knowledge of the sun will be a common theme throughout the rest of this book as we journey through history to the present day. It does, however, make the decoding of history a little more complex because the ancients would constantly use sun and astrological symbolism in their stories, and some of the names for their gods would be used to symbolize the sun and the planets. Working out what is literal and what is symbolic is a considerable challenge. I also think that the term sun god has been used to symbolize the extraterrestrials and their crossbreeds, who were said in the ancient texts to have faces which shone like the sun, the shining ones. Imagine the power you would have to advance an agenda and manipulate the human race if you knew the cycles of energy from the sun and other planets and how they were likely to affect human consciousness. You would know when people would be more prone to anger, aggression, fear, doubt and guilt, and therefore when to have your wars, economic collapses and so on. The Brotherhood have always had this knowledge and they use it to great effect today, as I shall document. The Babylonian Brotherhood and its reptilian bloodlines expanded across the Middle and Near East, especially to Egypt, and eventually into Europe and the Americas. I think the early Egyptian civilization after the Phoenix upheavals was the work of the Aryans from Mars, the Phoenicians, with or without the reptilian Anunnaki. But before 2000 BC the reptilians were taking over. The Royal Court of the Dragon was founded by the priests of Mendes in around 2200 BC and this still exists today as the Imperial and Royal Court of the Dragon Sovereignty. The author, Lawrence Gardner, is the present Chancellor of the Imperial Court of Dragon Sovereignty and his postal address in Devon, England is at Columba House. Columba equals Dove equals Queen Semiramis. According to Gardner, the name Dracula means son of Dracul and was inspired by Prince Vlad III of Transylvania Wallachia, a chancellor of the Court of the Dragon in the 15th century. The prince's father was called Dracul within the court. Dracul equals Draco. Wherever they went, the Babylonian Brotherhood created their own mystery schools to manipulate the population into believing a nonsense and into giving away their power through superstition and fear. At the same time, the higher levels of these pyramid structures communicated the advanced knowledge to those who had served the reptilian agenda. Where other non-reptilian initiation schools existed, they were infiltrated and taken over by the Babylonian priesthood.